What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Monster Bass channel. I'm Jeff with Burly Fishing, and today I want to talk about my top 5, maybe 6, I might throw you a little bonus one here too, but my top 5 favorite late fall techniques. Hey, if you guys like the content in this video as well as other videos on the channel, be sure to subscribe, smash the like, and ring that notification bell. And if you get an extra 2 seconds, hop over to Burly Fishing and throw me a subscribe as well. Love to see you more on my channel. Hit me up in the comments and I'll say hey. So let's start out with my favorite spring and fall go-to baits right now. Chatterbaits and spinnerbaits, baby. We've got the Strike King Thunder Cricket. This is one of my all-time favorite bladed jigs or chatterbaits, if you will. I love the shape of the jig head on this thing. I feel like this gets through some of the deeper structure and cover a lot better than the other chatterbaits that I like to use that I'll show you in a second. And it also has a nice unique thump to it with this blade and this moving articulating point right there on the jig. All around solid option. I love throwing like a Big Bite Baits Kamikaze swim on it. That's these bad boys right here. And just to prove that this is one of my favorite baits, it is included in the holiday limited edition Burly box available on monsterbass.com. There'll also be a link in the description below, so you can click that link and go pick up a Burly box. I appreciate you if you consider doing that. There are limited quantities, and there's other baits in this selection that are in that box too. But there you go. So the bladed jig option from Strike King, that Thunder Cricket, fantastic. Now that was green pumpkin, natural colors. That's generally what I'm throwing right now, and it's definitely gonna get bit. And then depending on conditions, I might choose a different option for my bladed jig. So here's another one, low light favorite for me. It's this like bluegill color pattern skirt. That's a custom skirt that I threw onto a Z-Man jackhammer. And also the blade on this is pretty heckin' beat up because I fished the crap out of this, but it's a gold blade, which is great for those low light conditions. Mostly in Michigan, it gets gloomy this time of year, so low light is almost every day. So this has been a staple for me for the fall, and it absolutely lives up to its name of the jackhammer because she straight hammers fish, man. One of my favorite baits to throw. If we want to get weird, we can throw some red, that Fire Craw from Z-Man. This is another jackhammer. Nice solid black blade to it. I think that makes a big difference. Really makes this red stand out. And that would be another fantastic option to be throwing in the fall and the spring. So come spring, you might be throwing this as well. And finally, the most finessey of the jackhammer or the bladed jig or the chatterbait options that I'll throw would be that Stealth Blade from Z-Man. These things are fantastic. It's like a slightly downsized, and I usually go lighter with these as well, version of the jackhammer with a smaller blade that is translucent. Check that out. Also has a slightly different vibe or thump to it. I've had a lot of luck on these in natural colors. This one coming in like some chartreuse and purples and greens and this like stripy shad pattern to it. So very bait fish-esque. Quick breakdown on the setup here. I've mentioned on the channel before, but my go-to for bladed jigs and spinner baits, which is what I'll show next here, would be my Lew's Custom Speed Stick rod. It's a 6'11" medium heavy, fast action. And then I pair that up with my Lew's Tournament MP reel in a high gear ratio. I believe that one's an 8:3:1. I like the high gear ratio because it allows me to really get the bladed jigs moving the way they're supposed to be, but it also allows me to either burn my chatterbaits or burn my spinnerbaits and gives me a little more control over where I'm fishing this within the water column. So that's my go-to setup. Definitely going braid to fluoro on this one so I don't miss any strikes because fish are just line shy. Speaking of spinnerbaits, let's get to those next. So I'm gonna show you some of my favorites to be throwing, especially this time of year. This is a Booyah Baits spinnerbait. This one is the multi-bladed option, so check that out. All willow leaf blades, ranging from small to big, alternating gold to silver. It just freaking works, man. You got a little shad, white and chartreuse pattern. I'm throwing these things without a trailer plastic and having amazing luck with it all year round. You can see this one has it's been put through the ringer a little bit. This thing's gotten some bites, eh? I also love to have a trailer hook on that. This time of year especially, I'm getting like this really late strike from the fish because they're hesitant, man. They're not really feeding up at this point. If you run this in front of them, you might get that reaction strike, but oftentimes they're kind of like following it and then they'll hit, right? So that trailer hook comes in handy. And I don't throw a plastic on this either because I don't want to beef up the profile too much. I think this is kind of perfect, especially if I'm throwing like a multi-bladed setup. Another option for me this time of year that I love would be the Z-Man Sling Blades. These are really my favorite spinnerbait of all time. I just love the shape of the jig head, that natural like fish head look to it. This recessed portion right here is fantastic, allows you to get through cover really well. They are hand tied, so these skirts stay on forever. They hold up really well. The blades are great. They also last a pretty long time. They don't rust as easily as some other spinnerbaits I've used in the past. And they come in a multitude of different colorways. So here's that bluegill pattern I was talking about. Love this, that orange hint on the bottom. Nice natural skirt pattern to it. Comes with gold blades. And those are fantastic, again, for these mostly low light conditions that we're dealing with. And then another great option would be like a shad pattern, something like this with the silver blades. So I have like sunny day conditions, and then I have my low light conditions. These two spinnerbaits could get it done for me for quite a while. Also, always going with that trailer hook, like I said. Finally, we go heavy and thumpy if it gets windy, and there's a lot of wind this time of year as well as in spring. So then I'll throw out, this actually came in last month's Monster Bass bag. We have the Rick Clun Trickster, and this thing is a 1/2 ounce white chartreuse, super heavy, custom wire bend there, which looks great. And then these custom blades thump really freaking hard. So this has been fantastic on those really windy days just to draw those bites out. Love something like this as well. Again, throwing this all on the same setup, that custom speed stick with the tournament MP from Lew's, and it just gets the job done. Allows me so much control over these baits, and it's a really fun rod and reel combo to fish with. Also, did I mention that there's a Z-Man Sling Blade spinnerbait in the Burly box? Again, link below, go pick it up. All right, so from here, I like to start slowing things down. We're gonna change our setup to a cranking setup, and I'm gonna use that for the next 2 lures that I'd recommend on my top 5 list here. So here we go to my favorite cranking setup, which is the Akuma Guide Select cranking rod, which is a moderate action. It's a 7.6, so a little bit longer, allows me to bomb out some casts with these body baits that I'm gonna show you here in a second. And that moderate action, when dealing with treble hooks, is fantastic because it makes it so that I'm not losing as many fish. And then because of the wind we're dealing with, I've got my ideal reel on there, which is the Shimano SLX DC. That is in a 6:6:1, so a lower gear ratio, but that's on purpose so I can fish it a lot slower. We're going braid to fluoro on this one as well. Fluorocarbon on your body baits allows you to fish them at their true depth, especially if you go a slightly longer fluorocarbon leader versus if you use mono or braid, which floats, you're actually fishing it sort of above the rated depth of those crankbaits. So I'm gonna show you a few options in Lipless that I love throwing this time of year. First off, the obvious one, that red eye shad. Number of different colors, mostly natural like shad patterns, or this bright chartreuse. So I love throwing the chartreuse a lot. Chartreuse just gets it done all year round for us in Michigan. I don't know, you guys let me know in the comments below. Like, is chartreuse a moneymaker for you, or is it just, you know, overrated? Because I'll be sad if you say overrated, but it works really well for us, so I use it all the time. So there we go. So that's that red eye shad in chartreuse and black. That's a fantastic option to throw around, and this is the downsized version. The cool thing about the red eye shads is they come in a bunch of different sizes. This is a little bitty guy, and it's great at this time of year for me, typically to downsize, because that's what's getting me bites. Another great option we got for that down to mid-size range would be the 13 Fishing El Diablo. I love the knock on this one. It is really loud. Comes in a ton of awesome natural patterns. So this is like a translucent bluegill pattern. And bluegill patterns are money up here right now, so I highly recommend it. Next up, we got the Arc Z63. This has become my favorite lipless bait, and this came in a Monster Bass box. We're going crazy with some craw patterns, but it also came in this nice holographic bluegill, which I unfortunately got snagged on a rock, broke off and lost, and RIP to that bait. This lipless is fantastic. Some of the best action in a lipless bait I have ever seen. I love this like giant flat section here. I feel like that really helps with it. And the bites I'm getting on these right now are from the yo-yo technique for the retrieve. So I'm bombing it out as far as I can, especially over areas where I know there's, say, like a hump, a drop off, a ledge, weed lines, anything like that. These things are great if you let it just fall to the bottom and then you rip, otherwise lift that rod tip up, you rip it up off the bottom, and you let it fall again. And you may get strikes either on the fall or when you're ripping it up. Just kind of feel for the weight of a fish at that point and then reel them in. I've caught a decent number of pike actually on these using that exact technique, but bass of course love it too. And finally, this is a fairly newish bait. It's kind of a hybrid lipless with a blade bait. You can see the bladed fins on here. This is from Rapala, and I also love on this that they went for the 2-hook instead of the full treble up front. This is nice because you can get over cover a lot more easily. So this is a fantastic ripping blade bait for this time of year. You also have a nice clip up here with 2 rigging options, so you can fish it a couple of different ways. This way is gonna tip up a little bit more, and then if I put my clip into the back point, it's gonna actually fish more like this. So next technique, technique 4 of 5, maybe possibly 6 if there's a bonus round that comes up, would be the jerkbait. Now this is arguably my favorite technique to fish this time of year in these conditions, other than a Ned rig, which is my obvious go-to. But these are super fun to fish. Now I'm throwing these on the same setup as before, the lipless baits there. This is my cranking setup. Why? Because we got a bunch of treble hooks. I just find that moderate to slow action is more fun to fish this technique in particular, and easier to play the fish and lose less fish with. So here's the deep large profile. And I mean, pick your brand of choice. This one is the Whippersnapper 110. That's from 13 Fishing. This is that like natural, just gold and orange and black kind of pattern. So looking like bait fish. Got a pretty hard knock to it. And then you can see, this is really cool that 13 does this. There's the diving depth right there on the lip. Man, can everybody just do that? Because that would make life really easy. These literally are meant to be paused right in front of a fish's face. Now, if the fish go deeper, I still want to be able to use this technique. So you just go to that deeper diving jerkbaits. Especially if you have sonar and you can roll around a few spots and you can find the fish. If you see that they're stacking up deep, let's say in the 5 to 8 foot range, then I know I can run this down rather than a crankbait that burns right through in front of them, that they're not likely to strike in 40 to 45 degree water. This, I can run down in front of them and just wait. And then if you got a slow sinking model, that's a great option too. So you can like work that shallow, then just pause and let it just do this for a while. Literally, there's a lot of waiting this time of year when we're fishing, but it works. So there's the Whippersnapper. Next up, you know your boys from Monster Bass made one. We got the Slick Stick 110, so again with the larger size, but now with the shallow lip. So this type of lip, now we're fishing in that like 2 to 6 foot range. We're not going super deep, but amazing action. Heavy rattle to it, but like whites, bluegill, shad, that gold pattern, perch, you know, those are all the colors that I want to be throwing right now that do really well. Love the red eyes on these things too. These things are really fun to fish. You got nice upgraded premium trebles, and then we might downsize. So I might move to one of my other favorites, a Rapala Rip Stop. These come in these amazing flashy shad patterns. They're really well made. And you notice you actually have a front lip and this little back scoop right there. With a Rip Stop, as soon as you, let's say you're reeling along, because they have some pretty good just reeling action, or you're twitching it pretty quick, then you can pop that rod real quick one more time and this thing's gonna pull forward and then stop. This is like a brake. So it just goes forward, it stops, and then it's gonna suspend. And that's when you get the crap knocked out of you. Well, what a feeling. So sometimes downsizing is the answer, and that's why I'll reach for something like this. Or my other favorite, which comes in a million different sizes, the Rapala X-Wrap. These things are fantastic with that little tied treble off the back, and here would be an example of a perch pattern. Here's a very small jerkbait, right? That's a pretty tiny model. But sometimes that's what it takes, and that gets it done. And again, how I'm working those, I'm going for mostly just the suspending to sinking models, not the floating models right now. So floating is a quick moving jerkbait. You know, twitch, pause, and it's floating away. I want to suspend in front of that fish's face as long as I can. So go for those suspending jerkbaits or slow sinks. So I can twitch, pause, and it's like slowly going down, kind of like a dying bait fish. And sometimes that is what gets it done. And finally, because, you know, it wouldn't be a video with me in it if we didn't talk about these, but we're going to talk about drop shots and Ned rigs. Especially if you can find fish stacked up, you can just catch all of them in that spot essentially if you do this. So Ned rigs are one of my favorite things to be throwing this time of year, mostly natural patterns, but y'all know that chartreuse still works, obviously. So coppertreuse from Z-Man, this is a finesse TRD. The Elastec is hyper durable. It's gonna hold up for 50 fish plus. And then I'll typically throw this, as long as I'm not in too heavy a structure area, I'm throwing this on an open hook because I don't wanna miss bites. So that's option number one. And I'll go a bit heavier because of the wind this time of year. And in that case, I might just bust out the Monster Bass EWG, the Sabertooth Ned jig that is new from Monster Bass here, and throw on, I don't know, maybe a little Z-Man Finesse TRD Craws. That green pumpkin combo right here with the little red flake up on my jig head there. Look at that. That is juicy. That is a smallie smasher. So again, with those, technique of choice right now, dead stick. Just maximize your pauses. All right, so if that standard size doesn't work, then I downsize, maybe even mega downsize. So here is the Mule Fishing 1/32 ounce jig paired with a Mule Fishing horsefly. This is an Elastec-esque material and they're hyper durable. This is super light, so I'm throwing it on my ultralight setup. That is a 13 Fishing Defy silver rod. It's 5'6", ultralight, fast action, and I pair that up with an Akuma Inspira reel. Now those are hard to find right now, so what you can do is you can just go with any spinning reel in like a 1000 size. So go to like the smallest option of any spinning reel, and that is a great pairing with an ultralight rod. I think the rod is way more important than the reel when it comes to ultralight fishing. That's just my opinion. So focus on the rod. The 13 Fishing Defy silver is mint. Of course, we're using fluorocarbon, either full fluorocarbon on the spinning reel or go braid to leader, which is my preference. So let's say an 8-pound braid to a 4-pound leader fluorocarbon. We're going light with these babies, right? Very enjoyable way to fish. One of my new favorites from this year. And all you gotta do with a 1/32 ounce jig or lighter is just pitch it out there and let it fall forever. This is falling very slowly through the water column, and it looks like what fish are starting to feed up on at this point. Those microorganisms, those bugs, things falling out of trees, those are the easy meals, so they're gonna key in on those targets much more than the larger options. All right, bonus technique time. One of my favorite things to do, especially when the water gets real cold, the fish slow down and they don't want to bite anything, is to throw out a little drop shot rig. So when it comes to drop shot, I'm throwing it on the exact same setup as my Ned rig, and I'm throwing out little paddle tail, hyper flexible, high action plastics like this. This is a Big Bite Baits Smallie Smasher in chartreuse and white, one of my go-tos. But my main rig right here, baby, that's that coppertreuse, aka the chartreuse, and this is the Trick Shots from Z-Man. Hyper durable, and they've got this nice finessey little tail there that has high action. This has been my fish catchinest drop shotty bait of the entire year. And what I like to do as far as terminal goes is I'll throw a 1/0 or a 2/0 Gamakatsu hook like this one right here. I'll tie a Palomar knot. I'll run my line through the hook, tie a Palomar knot, and then take all my extra tag line, which is however long I want the distance between my weight right here and the hook to be, and I'll run it back through that same eye of the hook right there. And then I'll tie that onto a little tungsten weight, just like this. This is a Woo Tungsten. This is a tube style weight. That's my preference. That's what I go to. It gets to cover the easiest. But teardrops are a great option too. You can even have like the little anchor ball, like whatever you want to go with. It's your preference. This just gets it done the most for me. So I'll tie it off to that. We're good to go. Then I'll just nose hook my plastic like so, or you can rig it weedless by having that hook point go right into the nose like so. It's gonna be high action and you're gonna get bit. And again, name of the game in fall is slow down for me, at least in my opinion, and I'll just cast it out there off of drop off ledge, any sort of transition point, and let that baby sit forever. Extend your pauses. It works really well. But there you guys go. That is my top 5+1, aka 6 techniques that I'm using this time of year. What are you using? Is there anything I mentioned today, or do you have your own stuff that you're throwing right now? Hit us up in the comments below. We appreciate you guys watching. I hope you had a lot of fun with this video. Hopefully it was helpful for you if you're trying to still get out there and catch some fishies in the cold weather, and I wish you the best of luck. Of course, if you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the Monster Bass channel, smash the like here, ring that notification bell so you can see when we drop more content. And then drive on over to the Burly Fishing channel and throw me a subscribe. Hit me up in the comments and I'll say, hey, appreciate you guys so much. Hopefully you are having a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.